There's nothing quite like making your TBR bigger in the year that hasn't even got here yet. Hey, what's up, bookworms? Mike back for some more 2025 preview. This time, we're going to be talking about my 10 most anticipated books coming in the new calendar year. It's always a fun list to make because there's always a ton of stuff that's coming out that you didn't really even plan when you were looking forward, and then you remember, oh yeah, all these new releases are coming out next year, as well as these standalones and these new series that you want to do. But hey, balancing these things is just kind of what I do here. Now, I gotta say, these are books that are going to be released for the first time in 2025, not just books I'm deciding to read in 2025. So I don't want to get that confused. I also got to bring up the fact that The Devils was my most anticipated book of 2025. Unfortunately, I was very, very blessed to be able to get a copy early and read it already. But if you're looking for it, that is why it is there. So it's I'm still going to count it as a 2025 read, even though I read it in 2024. But that's why I shall not be on this list. But I can tell you guys, this should be on your most anticipated of 2025 looks. Winds of Winter, obviously that's just always got a locked place on here. I think by now we all know better, but just in case George surprises the hell out of all of us and says, hey, by the way, this is here. Cool. Yeah, obviously that goes straight to the top of the list. Red God, the last book in Red Rising, still doesn't have an actual official date from Pierce Brown, or as he said, it's coming out in 2025. Empire of the Vampire 3, I know Jay Kristoff hopes that it is, but he cannot say if it will be because he also said it is the longest book that he's ever written, and he just finished it, and I doubt they turn it around that fast. And then you've got Lord of Demons. That's the third book in The Burning by Evan Winter. I don't know if he's still writing that series or not. It feels like it's reaching that point now where it's like, is he still writing that series? Anyway, so those will not be on here. So I'm going to talk about the 10 that I do have. Most of them have dates. I'm going to tell you by release date order here. And a lot of this there are some standalones, there's some horror, there's some sci-fi on here, there's a little bit of fantasy. There's a little bit of everything that I think that you would expect. So it's not all going to be things that I think you're expecting. There are going to be some new things on here because I am picking up some new authors. Since there's some new authors that I have fell in love with, and I shall be picking up their works. Let's begin with January 14th. This is Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. Now, I had planned to do the Final Girl Support Group this year by Grady Hendrix, and I said, well, he's got a new book coming out. You know what? I want to get back to being excited about horror author release dates, so I'm going to do that instead, and then I can kind of just go back and read Grady Hendrix books whenever I feel like it, but I'd like to start hitting some of these new releases when they do happen. Don't know a ton about this. I've read 2 Grady Hendrix books, loved one, really liked the other one, so I think he's going to be an author that's going to work for me, so I feel safe in saying that, yeah, I would want to pick up his book on release date. Now, this one, it's getting a lot of attention, I think, and a lot of people have already gotten it, and a lot of people have had some good things to say about it. I know Broken Binding is doing an edition of it as well. I did not get that one, but I'm hoping that I can get a hold of it on release day here and maybe check it out in January, because that'd be a nice way to make sure I'm keeping horror in the mainframe of the channel programming here going forward. Because I did stop that, doing one horror, one sci-fi, one fantasy, whatever per month. I did stop that, but I just want to make sure I'm not neglecting horror like I did before. Now that I've found several new authors, I think that's something that's going to be a safe bet here on the channel. Speaking of new authors, one that I actually heard about when I was talking to MJ and Adrian on Talk About Nothing last week was going to be Ed Crocker and his new series, the Everlands trilogy, comes out on January 14th. This is called Lightfall. And they sold this one to me. They kind of had me when they said, oh, it's vampires and werewolves and magicians. I said, hey, that sounds like something I'm very much interested in. So that one's just full off of a recommendation from those two. I think he is part of the Fanfight Addict family, so that's I can see why the connection is there. But I want to give some new authors a try, and I want to make sure I'm checking out. Very much like I did with James Logan last year with Silver Blood Promise. Make sure I'm giving some of these new authors a try, just not just a cover by, but a recommendation or something that the community's talking about a lot. Lightfall seems to be getting a lot of attention, and I love a good Lycans versus vampire story. That's always something that's going to be a little bit of fun. I don't know if it's it's fantasy or if it's like Underworld or something like that. Hey, whatever it is, I'm always here for that kind of. It's almost like the Hatfields and McCoys of horror right there. So I'm interested to see how that does go. And Ed did reach out and say he was going to be sending me an arc of this when I said I did have some interest. I'm very, very excited for that. So that'll wrap up a nice January, I think. They're heading into February. February the 4th, this is the first book in the Great Silence trilogy. This is going to be the follow-up to Empire of the Wolf by Richard Swan. This is called Grave Empire. Now, I don't know a ton of what this is about. I think he is leaning more into the traditional fantasy, whereas I think that Empire of the Wolf kind of went off and did like its own Eldritch kind of horror thing, which was cool. But that first book in that series, Justice of Kings, I loved. So I'm hoping he does more like that, even though I think he's very, very good at what he's doing with the Eldritch horror stuff. It's just me, I'm like, I really liked that like fantasy mystery kind of thing, kind of a whodunit. That was really, really cool to me. I really, really dug that. So I don't know really a ton about this, but Richard, class act guy. He's my favorite Harkonnen. I always joke with him. Am I joking? I don't know, Richard. We'll have to see. But yeah, I would say I would give anything that he's going to go for a try here in the future, and that will be the one coming up here in February. He's very consistent, guys. He will release his book on the same month every year when it's a trilogy. So I expect The Great Silence to be February of 25, 26, and 27. You'll get that trilogy all in a row. So fear not about starting a series with Richard. I think he's probably already writing book 3. I think he told me. I don't know, but that's the way that he does this, guys. He's going to release a book every single year, and I think that's just great for those of us who have been burned in the past about having to wait. Same day, February 4th. This is the final book in Saga of the Forgotten Warrior. This is Heart of the Mountain by Larry Correia. And look, I have this as one of my most anticipated. But I've got to tell you, I've still got 2 books to read before this. I read the first 3 books in Saga of the Forgotten Warrior, liked them quite a bit. Numbers game happened. I started doing that thing I was talking about with one of each, and I just kind of fell by the wayside. But I still got to do books 4 and 5 before I get to this one. But I imagine all 3 of these will be happening in 2025 because it is a great series and a series I want to get back to because Ashok Vadal is just an amazing character, and that world that Larry's created. He's found a way to make fantasy be like the thriller. I mean, he's found a way to make those 2 work. And it's one of those things where, as I said, never really thought that you could turn fantasy into a thriller. But he does a good job with it without sacrificing those character moments that make you give a damn. He's very, very good. And I hope you guys will pick up Saga of the Forgotten Warrior. Son of the Black Sword is just amazing. I think there's no way you're going to read that and not like it. And now you don't have to wait very long because the series is coming to a close here very, very soon. Headed into March of my first sci-fi offering here, and it's interesting because it was an author that I read a horror book from last year. This is Philip Fracassi. I loved Boys in the Valley, so I'm going to be checking out The Third Rule of Time Travel, March the 18th for this one. You got me a time travel story. I am a big, big fan of the time travel story. It's always one of those fun things to kind of see what rules are using. Using the Back to the Future rules, using the Bill and Ted rules, or using the Michael Crichton rules. These are all rules that I can get into. When I was watching 12 Monkeys, I was telling you guys all about these different types of rules with time travel. So I'll be interested to see what his rules are, specifically the third rule of time travel. So again, don't know very much of what it's about. But this stuff, I don't really like to read very much outside of like a one-sentence blurb because I don't want to spoil anything. And it's like movie trailers now. They just have no problem spoiling the whole plot for you if you aren't careful. So with that, I didn't really look up a ton of what this is about. But based off of how much I like Boys in the Valley, it's another author I think I'd like to try on release day. And I wanted to get a sci-fi book or 2 on the list here. And that is one of them. The other one is by Ms. Vonda Lee. It doesn't come out until October, so we're jumping quite a ways ahead here. Now, there are some that don't have dates here, so don't freak out. October the 9th, this is called The Last Contract of Isako. Now, when I actually talked to her on the channel, she mentioned that she was writing this, and she said it is very much like, imagine a cyberpunk setting, but if they were writing Dune. So I think she said Kurosawa writing Dune, so like a cyberpunk Dune story. Okay, sounds awesome. I'm playing Cyberpunk 2077 right now, and I like to use the samurai sword like all the time. The katana. I prefer to use the katana to the pistol sometimes. It's just so much fun being just a cyberpunk ninja sometimes. But finally, obviously, love the Greenbone Saga. Can't recall the name of it right here off the top of my head, but she had a novella right after that I read, and I love. So I've enjoyed everything I've read by Miss Vonda Lee, and I don't imagine this will be any different because I know she's a big Frank Herbert fan. She does love Dune, and I think of her using that lightly. It's not lightly. It's not like people saying like, oh, it's blank meets Game of Thrones, like everything was doing for a minute there. If she's using that description, not the publisher, I'm going to believe that's true. So yeah, anything she puts out, I'm going to give a try at this point, and I just love the way that she just writes dual sword battles. It's just so cool. I've offered you a clean blade, and I'm sure we'll get plenty of that with Isako here in the fall. Also in October the 23rd, this is going to be the follow-up to the Silver Blood Promise, book number 2 in The Last Legacy by James Logan. This is the Black Fire Blade. Guys, Silver Blood Promise was one of those where like I said I felt it was a good start. It was a good start, good enough for me to continue with the series. I did feel like it kind of dropped the ball on some of the things it set up, but then you got to realize book 1 of a trilogy. Okay, maybe you're just not going to get those answers in book 1. Okay, so if you look at that as kind of the setup book, and I would imagine book 2 here is going to be where you get to the main story. Who killed this guy's dad? That's the real big mystery here that I felt like it kind of got away from in book 1. But I'm interested to see where he goes up, because there's a duo in this story that I just loved. I loved that age gap. It was just so, I don't know, so wholesome. Just the way that would just come out was just so charming. I just could not get enough of their banter back and forth. It was just really, really good. And I think he set up kind of the seedy underworld really well that I want to see him build off of. And now he's kind of assembled this crew. Now I'm hoping we can just kind of go forward and get into the underpinnings of this big mystery that he sets up in the early parts of Silver Blood Promise. So that should be quite exciting, and I can't wait to do it, because I do think he set up something really good there. Might not have stuck the landing in book 1, but really it's one of those things where I think when you read the trilogy as a whole, you might not feel that way. So you kind of got to always take book 1 lightly like that when it is a planned trilogy. And see, book 2 is really going to give you a lot of answers about where you think this series is going to go going forward. And I'm excited to find out how he does it. Probably one of my most anticipated books of all of 2025. And this one doesn't really have a date. The only reason that I know that's coming out in 2024 is because I know the author, and he has told me it will be coming out. He's still writing it. But since he is self-published, there's a quick turnaround there. I'm talking about Of Empires and Dust by Ryan Cahill. This is book number 4 in The Bound and the Broken, which is going to be a monstrously sized book. It's going to be massive, guys. You thought Of War and Ruin was long? I think it's going to be, well, not laughable by comparison, but it will be bigger. It will be bigger. I think he's saying it's like 460,000 words. So it's going to be the Green Angel Tower size of a book here. And with me, it's like I enjoy that world immensely. I've said it's probably the most obsessed I got with the world since the World of Ice and Fire. And that's a high compliment. But you're doing Dragon Fantasy right. And Ryan's doing Dragon Fantasy very, very right. But the thing is like he's got all these different character groups, like numerous, dozen plus character groups, and he's jumping around the story, and it's just flawless the way that he's doing it. You never really go to a group of characters and be like, oh man, I don't want to hang out with them right now, or I wish you'd spend more time on this. I feel like he's balancing it very well. I'll be interested if he can keep juggling that going forward. I'm betting that he can, because he plots his books really, really well. But yeah, that one, I don't know when it's coming out, but I do know it's supposed to be in 2024. That's what he says, unless he hits some major snag. So we'll keep waiting. We'll keep waiting, because, yeah, if you haven't checked out Bound and Broken, highest of recommends. It's a very, very good series. War and Ruin was my number 2 book of 2023, and I'm imagining Of Empires and Dust will probably rank pretty high when I'm doing that list at the end of 2025. It's got lots of novellas in there, too. Kind of hold you over between these books. But I'm curious to see he does nice recaps in each one of his books. I'm thinking the recap for book 3 might be a novella in its own right. I'll be interested to see how he does that going forward. Another one that I don't have a date for, but again, I do know the author, Christopher Ruocchio. Fall of 2025, I think would be my best guess. He's finishing up the book right now. He says it's his longest book in the Sun Eater saga. This is called Shadows Upon Time. It's the final book in the series, and I'm imagining he will get it turned around in time for 2025. So him and Ryan both have told me, yes, they do plan for them to come out in 2025. Now, things can happen, but I felt safe enough with that, with saying, okay, I'll go ahead and put it on this list. So you're getting the end of the Sun Eater saga. Now, look, I still need to read book 6. Now, since it doesn't come into fall of this year, or 2025, okay, I've got time. With me, it was one of those where, like, I was on a sabbatical, as I called it, from big books at the time. And then I just started thinking, you know what, why not just read books 6 and 7 together? You know, that'd probably be a fun little journey. Because whenever I like this thing, when me and my wife will watch a season of TV together, we always make sure we save enough time to watch the last 2 episodes together. Because it's either like a cliffhanger, or, you know, sometimes the penultimate episode is way better than the finale. Don't know. I don't know. So it's just something we've always kind of done. I think I'd like to do that here with the Sun Eater saga. I think that'd be the way to do it. And excited, because it almost seems like it is kind of a soft reboot, but if you haven't started Sun Eater yet, I don't want to tell you what I mean by that. So take that for what you will, and if you feel like that's a spoiler, well, then forget you just heard it. By the time you read 5 books in that series, you'll forget that you ever did hear it. And the last one here, without a date, again, I suppose this is going to be late 2025. And the reason I'm saying that is because I know James Islington turned this in June. He turned in his manuscript in June, and I imagine within 18 months he's going to get the book turned around. This is The Strength of the Few. It's book 2 in this Hierarchy series, and the sequel to Will of the Many, which was a lot of people's book of the year last year. I was very, very much a pariah in saying, look, I thought it was a good book. It just didn't like blow me away like everyone else, but I did like all the things that James did set up here. I love Lycanius, and I feel like he's earned my trust to know all these weird unanswered questions and plot threads he's got going, they're going to be answered over the course of the series. So that's one of those where, like, when you don't have to wait, like I didn't have to wait for Lycanius. It was over when I started reading it. And so I didn't have to wait for that. I wonder if, like, I went back and read book 1 and I had no book 2 back then, if I'd have kind of felt similarly, like I liked it, but I want to know more, and I don't have that option right now. Maybe that affects my mood a little bit. But yeah, Strength of Few. And the thing is, people are like, oh, you didn't even like that book. Where do you get that from? It was a very, very positive review. I just said I didn't think it was like the most amazing thing I've read the last decade, like a lot of my peers on BookTube were doing. So it's really weird. And I even told James that when we talked, and he's like, man, I thank you for the review. I thought it was highly positive, you know? So it's one of those things I think that we've gotten to as a people, where either there has to be best book ever or throw it in the fireplace. I seem like how it's gotten lately. So with me, I give it like a 4 out of 5 stars, I guess. I think that's really good still, you know, but I'm excited to see what he goes forward with it. I don't get the Red Rising out of it like everyone else, but that's okay. I got a little more Sun Eater out of it than I got of Red Rising. And no, those two series always do come up together for some reason. But those are the 10 that I'm looking at right now. I won't pretend that something else won't come out of nowhere like Silver Blood Promise did last year and make it up onto this list. It might. You never know. Or, you know, hey, Jay Kristoff might shock us and be like, hey, Christmas next year, Empire of the Vampire 3. You know, who knows? Who knows? So things can come on here. Things can come off. Maybe Blake Crouch comes out of nowhere and releases a new book. It can happen. And, you know, those things are always unpredictable. But right now on paper, these are the 10 that I think I would say I'm the most excited for in 2025. And it's just going to be a banger every year. So some really, really good books on here. Some big boys as well. But hey, I would love to know what you guys are most excited about for 2025. Is Sarah J. Maas putting out a new book? Hey, please drop it below. Let me know how you feel about it. There are no wrong answers on a video like this. I'd love to know what you're excited about. If you're going to read any of these with me, I would love to have you along. So drop in the comments, guys, and let me know, and I will talk to you there.